When waitress Maya Santos clutched the pharmacy bag containing medicine she couldn't afford for her dying son, she had no idea the billionaire who secretly paid for it was about to expose the pharmaceutical conspiracy that had destroyed her family 25 years ago. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Section 1/10. The things that change our lives forever rarely announce themselves. For Maya Santos, it was a whispered phone call taken in the back hallway of Bellamy's, the five-star restaurant where she'd worked for the past 3 years. For Alexander Reeves, it was the quiet desperation in a stranger's eyes that cracked the perfect veneer of his carefully constructed world. Neither could have known that an overheard conversation would set in motion events that would unravel decades of secrets, lies, and a connection deeper than either could have imagined. The Friday evening dinner rush at Bellamy's moved with the precision of a Swiss timepiece. Crystal glasses clinked, silver cutlery gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers, and hushed conversations of the city's elite created a gentle hum that filled the space. Maya moved between tables with practiced grace, her steps silent on the plush carpet, her smile never faltering despite the weight pressing against her chest. "Another bottle of the Chateau Margaux for table 7, she murmured to Dominic the sommelier as she passed the bar. "Everything all right, Maya?" Dominic asked, pausing as he reached for the wine. In 3 years, he'd never seen the crease between her eyebrows so pronounced, the shadows under her eyes so dark. "Fine," she replied automatically, the word hollow. "Just tired." It was more than tired. It was bone-deep exhaustion, coupled with a fear that had wrapped itself around her heart and squeezed tighter with each passing day. Her son Elijah's medication wasn't working anymore. The doctor had prescribed something new, something not covered by her insurance, something that cost more per month than she made in 2 weeks of tips. Maya's phone vibrated in her pocket as she arranged delicate china plates on a tray. She glanced at the screen. Agnes's Children's Hospital. Her heart stuttered. "Can you cover table 12 for a minute?" she asked Rebecca, another server, her voice tight with urgency. In the narrow service hallway, Maya pressed the phone to her ear, turning her face to the wall. "Hello? This is Maya Santos. Ms. Santos. This is Dr. Patel. I wanted to update you on Elijah's latest test results." Maya closed her eyes, bracing herself. "Is it worse?" "I'm afraid the inflammation has increased. We really need to start him on the Aralimab as soon as possible. Have you had a chance to speak with your insurance company?" The hallway seemed to tilt. "They won't cover it. I've appealed twice. They say there are alternatives." "Ms. Santos," Dr. Patel's voice softened, "I wouldn't have prescribed this if there were viable alternatives. Elijah's condition is progressing faster than we anticipated. Without the proper medication, single quotes, she didn't need him to finish the sentence. The unspoken threat had haunted her dreams for weeks. "I understand," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll figure something out. I promise." She ended the call and pressed her forehead against the cool wall, trying to breathe through the panic. $18,000 for a 6-month treatment. Might as well be asking for the moon. Maya didn't notice the man who had stepped into the hallway, pausing when he saw her. Alexander Reeves, impeccably dressed in a custom Tom Ford suit, had merely been looking for the restroom. Instead, he found himself frozen, an unwilling witness to raw desperation. "Excuse me," he said quietly, intending to retreat. Maya straightened immediately, professional mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. "I'm so sorry, sir." "The men's room is the first door on the right," he nodded, moving past her, but the conversation he'd overheard lingered. A sick child, medication insurance wouldn't cover, the quiet devastation in her voice as she promised to figure something out. Alexander Reeves knew that tone. He'd heard it in his mother's voice 25 years ago, when she'd worked 3 jobs trying to afford his treatments, before everything changed, before they lost everything. Back at table 9, his business associates continued their discussion about the latest merger without noticing his extended absence. Alexander rejoined them, nodding at appropriate intervals while his mind remained in that hallway with the server whose name tag read Maya. "The pharmaceutical sector is where the real money is," Harrison Bennett was saying, swirling his whiskey. "Healthcare is recession-proof. People always get sick." "True," Alexander replied, his voice controlled despite the sudden bitter taste in his mouth. "But at what cost?" 3 tables away, Maya served a tray of appetizers to a group of laughing women draped in jewelry that could have paid for Elijah's medicine several times over. Her smile never faltered. No one at the table noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she arranged their plates. "Your seafood platter, ladies. Can I get you anything else?" Alexander watched her from the corner of his eye. The professional distance, the invisible wall between those who served and those who were served. He'd been on both sides of that wall. When Maya approached his table with coffee, he observed her more directly. Dark circles skillfully concealed under makeup, the slight redness around her eyes that suggested recent tears, the way she carried herself with dignity despite what he now knew was crushing worry. "More coffee, sir?" she asked, her voice revealing nothing of her private anguish. "Thank you," Alexander replied, noticing now the small gold locket around her neck, partially hidden by her uniform, the kind that might hold a photo of a child. "My name is Alexander Reeves. What's yours?" The question violated the unspoken boundary between customer and server. For a moment, surprise flickered across her face before her professional mask returned. "Maya, sir." "Maya Santos." "Thank you, Maya." She nodded and moved on to the next table. unaware that Alexander had made a decision that would change both their lives. After dinner, Alexander lingered at the table after his associates had departed. He requested the check from Maya directly. "Was everything to your satisfaction, Mr. Reeves?" she asked, presenting the leather folder with the bill. "Perfect," he replied. Then, after a moment's hesitation, "Maya, I couldn't help overhearing your conversation earlier about your son." Her composure cracked momentarily, fear and embarrassment washing over her face before she recovered. "I apologize if that disturbed your dinner, sir." "No, that's not." Alexander shook his head. "My mother was in your position once, with me. I had a rare autoimmune condition as a child." Maya's professional smile faltered. This wasn't a conversation she was prepared for. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said carefully. Alexander placed his credit card in the folder without looking at the bill. "The treatment that saved my life wasn't covered by insurance either. It was experimental then." He paused. "It was called Aralumab." Maya froze, her eyes widening. That's single quotes the same medication your son needs," Alexander finished. "It's not experimental anymore, but still priced beyond reach for most people." Bitterness crept into his tone. "A medication I helped develop further when my company acquired Meridian Pharmaceuticals 3 years ago." Understanding dawned on Maya's face. Alexander Reeves, the billionaire CEO whose acquisition of Meridian had been front-page news. The man who owned the company that made the medication that could save Elijah and had priced it beyond her reach. "I see," she said, her voice cooling. She took the folder with his card and stepped away. Alexander watched her go, knowing what she must think of him. Another rich man profiting from the desperation of people like her. She didn't know he'd fought against the price increases. Didn't know he'd eventually lost that fight to the board and shareholders. Didn't know he'd resigned as CEO 6 months ago, maintaining his position as chairman only to try to influence change from within. When Maya returned with his receipt, her professional mask was firmly back in place, betraying nothing. "Thank you for dining with us tonight, Mr. Reeves." He signed the receipt, adding a tip that equaled the bill itself, then stood to leave. "Maya," he said quietly, "check with the hospital pharmacy tomorrow. Your son's medication should be waiting for him." Before she could respond, he walked out into the cool night air, leaving Maya staring after him, the receipt clutched in her trembling hand. The tip was generous, but nowhere near enough for Elijah's medicine. Was he mocking her, making empty promises? The next morning, Maya stood at the pharmacy counter at St. Agnes Children's Hospital, heart pounding. "Santos," she told the pharmacist, Elijah Santos. There was supposed to be a prescription ready for him. The pharmacist typed on her computer, then smiled. "Yes. Aralumab, 6 months supply. It's been paid for in full through the Reeves Foundation Patient Assistance Program." Maya's knees nearly buckled. "There must be some mistake." "We don't qualify for." "No mistake," the pharmacist assured her, bringing out a large white bag with the pharmacy logo. "Everything's been arranged. Your son has been enrolled in the program with all future refills covered." She handed Maya the bag with a smile. "Someone must be looking out for you." Clutching the bag that held her son's future, Maya felt tears spill down her cheeks. Someone was looking out for them, but why? And what would it cost? 2 weeks later, Maya was working the dinner shift when Alexander Reeves appeared again, this time alone. He requested a table in her section and watched as recognition flickered across her face. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice steady despite the emotions churning inside her. "Thank you isn't enough for what you did. How is your son?" he asked. "Elijah's responding well to the treatment. The doctors are optimistic." Maya hesitated. "I don't understand why you helped us." Alexander's eyes held hers. "Because 25 years ago, someone helped my mother and me, and because I know exactly who owns the patent on that medication and what it actually costs to produce." Maya nodded slowly. There were questions she wanted to ask, but this wasn't the time or place. Not with other customers waiting and her manager watching. "Will you be dining alone tonight, sir?" "Yes," Alexander replied. "And afterward, if you have time, I'd like to explain why I'm really here." Maya didn't know it then. But the explanation Alexander Reeves offered that night would unravel a web of corporate corruption, family secrets, and a connection between them that stretched back decades before either was born. A connection forged by the very medication that was saving her son's life. After her shift ended at 11, Maya found Alexander Reeves waiting in the small lounge area near the coat check. He'd been nursing the same glass of scotch for over an hour, his attention focused on something beyond the restaurant's elegant confines. "You didn't have to wait," she said, having changed from her uniform into jeans and a worn leather jacket. Alexander stood, setting his barely touched drink aside. "There's a cafe still open around the corner. Would that work?" She hesitated, every instinct honed from years of single motherhood screaming caution. This man had paid for Elijah's medication, $18,000 without hesitation. People didn't do that without expecting something in return. "I need to get home to my son," she replied. "Of course." He seemed to have anticipated this. "Another time, perhaps. When it's more convenient." Maya studied him. In the soft light of the lounge without his business associates, he looked different, tired. The perfect veneer showed hairline cracks, slight shadows beneath his eyes, a tension in his shoulder. "My sitter can stay until midnight," she conceded. "It's 1 hour. The cafe was nearly empty, just a couple of students with laptops and a barista who looked ready for her shift to end. Maya ordered plain coffee. Alexander asked for the same. "You mentioned wanting to explain why you're really here," Maya said once they were seated in a quiet corner. "I'm listening." Alexander's fingers tapped in a regular rhythm on the table. "What do you know about Meridian Pharmaceuticals?" Only what I've learned since Elijah's diagnosis. They make Oralimab. They charge obscene prices for medications people can't live without. She met his gaze evenly. Your company? Not anymore. Not really. He leaned back. I stepped down as CEO 6 months ago. I didn't know that. It wasn't widely publicized. Alexander's mouth twisted. The board preferred to present it as me taking a strategic advisory role to pursue philanthropic interests. The truth is, I was forced out after fighting against the latest price increases on our specialized medications. Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Expect me to believe a billionaire CEO lost his job fighting for lower drug prices? Not lost. Transitioned. I'm still chairman. Still the largest individual shareholder. He leaned forward. Maya, I founded Meridian 15 years ago with a singular mission to develop better treatments for autoimmune conditions based on the research that saved my life. We were going to make these medications accessible. What happened? Success. Growth. We went public, took on investors who cared about quarterly profits more than patients. 5 years ago, we developed a new formulation of Oralimab with fewer side effects. The board saw an opportunity to repatent and raise prices. Maya's coffee cooled untouched. If you're still chairman, can't you change things? I'm trying. His voice hardened. But 3 months ago, I discovered something disturbing in our financial records. Money being funneled through shell corporations. Research data being manipulated. Clinical trial results selectively reported. You're saying your company is corrupt? I'm saying there's something rotten at the core of Meridian, and it predates my involvement. I believe it goes back to the original development of Oralimab in the 1990s. Alexander paused. That's why your son's case caught my attention. The medication, your last name. It can't be coincidence. Maya stiffened. What about my last name, Santos? It was the maiden name of one of the original researchers on Oralimab, Dr. Elena Santos. The name hung in the air between them. Maya's hands trembled slightly. Elena Santos was my aunt, she said quietly. She died before I was born. Car accident. Alexander nodded slowly. That's what the official record shows. What do you mean, official record? He didn't answer direct. What about your parents? My father left when I was a baby. My mother died when I was 16. Cancer. Maya's patience was wearing thin. Mr. Reeves. Alexander, please. Alexander, you've paid for my son's medication, and I'm grateful beyond words. But if you're using my family's history as some kind of corporate intelligence gathering, I'm not interested. That's not what this is. He insisted, though the intensity in his eyes suggested otherwise. Maya, Oralimab saved my life when I was 12. My mother was like you, working multiple jobs, desperate to afford a treatment insurance wouldn't cover. A mysterious benefactor stepped in, covered the costs. Got me into the clinical trial. How fortunate for you it was, but I never knew who helped us or why. When I founded Meridian, I vowed to pay that kindness forward. I established the patient assistance program specifically for families like yours and mine. He hesitated. The program is named after the doctor who developed the original compound, Dr. Martin Santos. Maya sat perfectly still. Martin Santos? Your father, I believe? The cafe seemed to recede around her, sounds becoming distant. My father was a lab technician who abandoned his family. He wasn't a doctor. According to Meridian's sealed records, Dr. Martin Santos led the initial research team on Oralimab from 1992 to 1995. His sister, Dr. Elena Santos, was his primary research partner. Both disappeared from the company records after 1995. The patent was reassigned to Meridian's then CEO, Harrison Bennett. Harrison Bennett? The man you were having dinner with 2 weeks ago? Alexander nodded. My mentor, the man who funded Meridian's startup phase. The man who insisted I acquire the original Oralimab patent when we had the capital. Maya pushed her coffee aside, mind racing. This is insane. My father wasn't some brilliant researcher. He was a deadbeat who left us with nothing. What did your mother tell you about him? That he worked in a medical lab, that he couldn't handle the responsibility of a family, that he never tried to contact us after he left. Maya's voice hardened with old pain, changed our name back to her maiden name, and raised me alone. Alexander reached into his jacket and removed a folded document, sliding it across the table. This is from Meridian's archived personnel records. I had to access it through back channels. Maya unfolded the paper with unsteady hands. It was a staff photograph from 1994, labeled Oralimab Development Team. In the center stood a man with kind eyes and a serious expression, his arm around a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Maya herself. The caption identified them as Dr. Martin Santos and Dr. Elena Santos. That's not possible, Maya whispered. I've never seen a picture of my father, but my mother would have told me if he was this. Would she? If she believed he'd betrayed her? If she was trying to protect you from something? Maya stared at the photograph, at the face of the man who had supposedly abandoned her before she could form memories of him. Protect me from what? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Alexander leaned forward. In 1995, both Santos siblings were removed from the project. The official record shows Elena died in a car accident. Martin disappeared. The patent for Oralimab was reassigned to Harrison Bennett, who later sold it to a larger pharmaceutical company for $1 billion. You think Bennett stole their research? I think something happened in that lab. Something worth killing. Maya looked up sharply. Killing? You think my aunt was murdered? I don't know. But 3 months ago, I found financial records showing recurring payments from a Meridian Shell Corporation to someone in Brazil. The payments started in 1995 and continued until last year. Brazil? Your father was Brazilian, wasn't? Maya nodded slowly. My mother said he went back there after leaving us. The payments stopped in August last year. 2 months later, your son was diagnosed with the same rare condition Aralumab was designed to treat. Alexander's eyes held hers, a condition with a strong genetic component. The implication hung between them. Maya shook her head in disbelief. You think my father was being paid to stay away? That he stopped taking the money and ... Someone sent a message by ensuring his grandson would need the very medication he helped develop. Alexander finished grimly. A medication now controlled by the people he once threatened. This is insane, Maya whispered, but doubt had taken root. Her mother had always been vague about her father, becoming evasive when pressed for details. And there was the odd timing of Elijah's diagnosis, the sudden onset of symptoms so severe they had baffled his doctors. I need to get home, she said abruptly, standing. The photograph trembled in her hand. Keep it, Alexander said. Think about what I've said. If I'm right, the truth about your father could expose one of the biggest medical frauds in history. And if you're wrong, you've just twisted my family history into some corporate conspiracy theory. Maya slipped the photograph into her pocket nonetheless. Maya, Alexander said as she turned to leave, there's something else. The patient who received the first successful Aralumab treatment in the 1995 trial. The trial your father was mysteriously removed from. He paused. It was me. Maya froze. What are you saying? I'm saying your father may have saved my life, and someone has been covering up that fact for 25 years. His eyes held hers. I think we were meant to find each other. Outside the cafe, Maya hailed a taxi, her mind spinning. As the car pulled away, she glanced back to see Alexander still standing on the sidewalk, watching her with an expression that mirrored her own confusion and disbelief. At home, after relieving the babysitter and checking on Elijah, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, thanks to the medication, Maya sat at her kitchen table and removed the photograph from her pocket. She studied the face of the man who was supposedly her father, searching for some resemblance to herself or to Elijah. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Consider carefully who you trust with what I've told you. Some secrets are dangerous. Maya set the phone down and returned to the photograph. Her finger traced the outline of her supposed father's face, then moved to the woman beside him, her Aunt Elena. Behind them, partially obscured but still recognizable, stood a much younger Harrison Bennett. His hand rested possessively on Elena's shoulder, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. And there, at the edge of the group, stood a woman Maya recognized instantly despite never having seen her in such professional attire. Her mother, looking directly at the camera with an expression of unmistakable fear. Sleep eluded Maya that night. She sat in the glow of her laptop, searching for traces of a father she'd never known, Dr. Maya Santos. The search results were sparse. A few mentions in academic journals from the early 1990s, co-authored papers on autoimmune disorders, a brief faculty listing at a research university. Nothing after 1995. No obituary, no social media presence, no record of his life beyond the moment he supposedly abandoned his family. The more she searched, the more the official story of her life unraveled. Her mother, Isabel, had told her that Martin was a lab technician who couldn't handle responsibility. The man in these academic papers was a pioneering immunologist whose early work had laid the groundwork for treating conditions previously considered untreatable. At 3 a.m., Maya found herself digging through the storage bins she'd kept after her mother's death. Old photographs, school records, the sparse mementos of a life lived modestly. At the bottom of one bin, she found a small wooden box she'd never opened, assuming it contained her mother's jewelry. Inside was a worn leather journal, its pages filled with her mother's familiar handwriting, and a smaller envelope containing a key and a piece of paper with a series of numbers, a safety deposit box. The journal entries began in 1994. March 15, 1994, Martin is working late again. Alina says they're close to a breakthrough. I worry about them both. Harrison watches the lab like a hawk these days. June 22, 1994. The preliminary tests are promising. Martin came home smiling for the first time in months. He says if the compound works as they hope, it could help thousands of children with immune disorders. Elena believes they'll be ready for human trials by next year. October 4th, 1994, Harrison has been asking strange questions about documentation, about who knows what. Martin thinks he's just being cautious about patent procedures, but Elena is suspicious. She says Harrison has been meeting with people from Meridian's financial department without including the research team. December 12, 1994. Martin found a recording device in the lab today. When he confronted Harrison, he was told it was standard security protocol. Martin doesn't believe it. Neither do I. February 3rd, 1995. I'm pregnant. Martin is ecstatic. Alina has already started buying baby things. Harrison's congratulations seemed forced. Later, I overheard him telling someone on the phone that complications have arisen. Maya's hands hands trembled as she turned the pages. The entries grew more frantic as 1995 progressed. April 17, 1995. Something is wrong. Martin found discrepancies in the trial documentation. Records altered, data changed. When he raised concerns, Harrison suggested he was overworked, offered him paid leave. Martin refused. May 29, 1995. Alina was followed home last night. Martin wants to go to the ethics board, but I'm afraid. What about the baby? June 14, 1995. They've done it. The compound works. The first human trial was a complete success. A 12-year-old boy with an aggressive autoimmune disorder. Complete remission within weeks. Martin and Alina should be celebrating, but Harrison has called an emergency board meeting without them. Alexander Reeves. A 12-year-old boy must have been Alexander. July 2nd, 1995. Alina is dead. They're saying it was an accident, that she lost control of her car on the mountain road. Martin doesn't believe it. Neither do I. She had evidence, she said. Proof of what Harrison was planning. July 10th, 1995. They came tonight. Two men claiming to be from company security. They showed us photos of me shopping, at my doctor's appointments, at my parents' house. Then Harrison arrived. He laid out our option. The patent would be reassigned. Martin would disappear, accept a new identity and regular payments. If he refused, if he ever tried to claim credit for Auraliumab or contact anyone from his former life, they would ensure I had an accident like Elena. July 5th, 10th, 1995. We're leaving tonight. Martin has secured new identities. We'll go to Brazil, where his mother's family is from. Harrison doesn't know I'm keeping this journal. It's the only record of the truth. Someday, when it's safe, our child will know who their father really was. The final entry was dated 2 months later. September 23, 1995. Martin is gone. They found us somehow. He led them away to protect us. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I can't stay in Brazil. I'm going back to the States, back to my maiden name. Santos died with Martin. My daughter will never know her father's name. It's the only way to keep her safe. Maya closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. Her entire understanding of her family had been a carefully constructed lie. A lie her mother had maintained until her death. A lie meant to protect her. Her phone rang, startling her. Unknown number. 4:17 a.m. Hello? She answered cautiously. Maya. Alexander's voice was tense. Are you at home with Elijah? Yes, why? Is your apartment secure? Deadbolt's alarm system? Fear crept up her spine. What's going on? Someone accessed the Meridian archives tonight after I left. They know I pulled the Santos files. You think someone's coming here? For us? I don't know, but I'm not taking chances. I'm sending a security team to your address. Pack essentials for you and Elijah. Enough for a few days. Alexander, Maya, please. If I'm wrong, you'll have wasted one night. If I'm right, ... He didn't finish the sentence. 20 minutes later, Maya had woken Elijah, packed a bag, and was explaining to her sleepy 7-year-old why they were going on an unexpected adventure. But school, he protested weakly, still half asleep. You'll miss a couple days. It's okay. She smoothed his dark hair so like hers, like the man in the photograph. Remember Mr. Reeves, the man who helped with your medicine? He's invited us to stay at his house for a little while. Elijah's eyes widened. Is he rich? Does he have a swimming pool? Despite everything, Maya smiled. Probably. Now grab your backpack. Only the important stuff, okay? As Elijah stuffed his dinosaur figures and favorite books into his backpack, Maya slipped the journal and safety deposit box information into her own bag. A knock at the door made her freeze until she heard a professional voice announce, Ms. Santos, security team from Miss R. Reeves. Two men in dark suits escorted them to an SUV with tinted windows. As they pulled away, Maya noticed another vehicle parked across the street, its headlights dark but engine running. It didn't follow them, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Alexander's house turned out to be a modernist fortress perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, all glass and steel protected by a state-of-the-art security system and a 12-foot perimeter wall. It was nearly dawn by the time they arrived. Alexander met them at the door, disheveled in a way that suggested he hadn't slept either. I'm sorry for the dramatics, he said, leading them inside, but after what I found tonight, I couldn't take risks. Elijah, now fully awake and wide-eyed at the palatial surroundings, tugged at Maya's hand. Mom, there's a robot in the hallway. That's just Theo, my automated assistant, Alexander explained with a small smile. He can show you where the game room is if you'd like. Elijah looked to Maya for permission. Go ahead, she said, but stay inside, okay? Once Elijah was out of earshot, Maya turned to Alexander. What did you find that spooked you so badly? Alexander led her to his office, where multiple screens displayed financial records, personnel files, and security footage. Harrison Bennett made an unscheduled visit to Meridian headquarters tonight, 3 hours after I accessed the archives. He hasn't set foot in that building in months. Maybe it's a coincidence. Then explain that. He pulled up an image from what appeared to be security camera footage. It showed Harrison in a conference room with two men Maya didn't recognize. These men work for a private security firm that Meridian has used for ... Sensitive matters. What kind of sensitive matters? The kind that don't appear in official records. Alexander's expression darkened. The same firm that employed the two men who threatened your parents in 1995. Maya sank into a chair. You believe my mother's journal? You found something? She nodded, retrieving the journal from her bag. As Alexander read, his face grew increasingly grim. This confirms what I suspected, he said finally. Harrison stole the Auraliumab patent from your father and aunt. He's built his entire fortune on their work and killed my aunt to cover it up. Possibly. Alexander ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. What I don't understand is why they're making moves now. The payments to Brazil stopped months ago. If your father was the recipient, what if he's dead? Maya's voice was barely audible. What if they'd finally found him? Alexander considered this. Why come after you now? You've had no connection to Meridian until Elijah's diagnosis. The timing. Maya straightened. Elijah was diagnosed right after the payments stopped. You said yourself it was suspicious. You think they somehow caused Elijah's condition? No, that's not possible. But what if they've been monitoring my family all these years? What if they knew Elijah had early symptoms before I did? The horror of the thought made her voice shake. What if they delayed his diagnosis until it was critical, knowing I couldn't afford the treatment? Alexander's expression hardened. A message to your father. Proof they could still reach his family. But why would they care after all these years? The patent, the money, they won. My father lost everything. Unless he didn't. Alexander turned to his computer, typing rapidly. Unless Martin Santos hasn't been hiding all these years. What if he's been gathering evidence? Building a case? After 25 years? Pharmaceutical patents last 20 years, Maya. The original Auraliumab patent expired 2 years ago. That's why Meridian rushed to develop the new formulation, the one Elijah is taking. Understanding dawned. And if my father could prove the original patent was stolen, it would invalidate the new patent too. Meridian would lose exclusive rights to a multi-billion-dollar drug. Alexander's eyes met hers. It would destroy Harrison Bennett and everyone who helped him commit fraud. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number again. The safety deposit box. Get it now. They know. M. She stared at the message, her heart pounding. M. Martin? Alexander read over her shoulder. Could be. It could also be a trap. Yes. Maya looked toward the hallway where Elijah had disappeared with the robot assistant. I can't leave him. You don't have to, Alexander assured her. He's safer here than anywhere. I'll go. No. Maya stood. It's my father. My family. I need to know the truth. She handed him the safety deposit information from her bag, but I can't do it alone. Alexander studied her face, seeing determination override fear. We'll go together. I'll have my security team stay with Elijah. As dawn broke over the ocean, Maya stood at the window watching the sky lighten. The journal clutched to her chest. 25 years of lies, of running, of looking over shoulders. What had her father gathered that was worth killing for? And was he still alive, reaching out now when she needed him most? Behind her, Alexander spoke quietly on the phone, arranging for the bank visit as soon as it opened. In a few hours, they would know what secret had been worth destroying so many lives to protect. First National Bank opened at 9 a.m. sharp. Maya and Alexander arrived at 9:03, accompanied by a plainclothes security guard who positioned himself discreetly in the lobby. Alexander had insisted on the precaution despite Maya's concerns about drawing attention. Miss Santos, the bank manager, greeted her with professional courtesy, showing no reaction to the presence of one of the city's wealthiest men beside her. How can I help you today? I need to access a safety deposit box, Maya said, presenting the key and information from her mother's belongings. The manager examined the paperwork. This box hasn't been accessed in nearly 10 years. It was my mother's, Maya. She passed away. I see. Do you have the death certificate and proof of executorship? Maya's heart sank. She hadn't considered the legal requirements. I don't have those with me. I'm afraid without proper documentation. Perhaps I can help. Alexander interjected smoothly. The Santos family has been important clients of Meridian Pharmaceuticals for many years. As chairman, I can vouch for Miss Santos's identity and right to access this particular box. Maya shot him a sidelong glance. It was a calculated bluff, leveraging his position and the Meridian connection. The manager hesitated, clearly recognizing Alexander. This is highly irregular, Mr. Reeves. I understand, Alexander replied, his tone suggesting he rarely encountered resistance. Would it help if I co-signed the access form and accepted personal liability? 10 minutes and several signed documents later, Maya found herself in a private viewing room with Alexander, staring at a rectangular metal box. That was impressive, she murmured. People rarely question authority when presented confidently enough, Alexander replied, though I've probably violated several banking regulations. Maya inserted the key with trembling fingers. Inside the box lay several items: a USB drive, a small notebook, a manila envelope, and a faded photograph of a much younger version of her mother holding a baby. Maya herself standing next to a man whose face had been carefully cut from the image. He removed himself from the pictures to protect us, Maya whispered, touching the jagged edge where her father's face should have been. The notebook contained what appeared to be scientific formulas and notations, most incomprehensible to Maya. Alexander studied them with growing interest. These are the original Auraliumab formulations, he said quietly. Your father's work, the true documentation of his research. Maya opened the manila envelope. Inside were legal documents, patent applications with Martin Santos's name as primary inventor, dated correspondence with the patent office, and a formal ethics complaint against Harrison Bennett that had apparently never been filed. Evidence, Alexander said, carefully examining each document. But it's 25 years old. Is it enough? Maya picked up the USB drive. Let's find out what's on this. They returned to Alexander's house an hour later. Tension coiled between. Neither had wanted to access the USB drive on a public computer, and Maya had been increasingly anxious about leaving Elijah, even in the care of Alexander's security team. They found Elijah in the game room, happily exploring the virtual reality system under the watchful eye of a female security officer who introduced herself as Natalie. Everything quiet? Alexander asked her privately. No activity, Natalie confirmed. But the team monitoring the Santos' apartment reports someone entered approximately 30 minutes ago. Professional job, no forced entry. Maya overheard this and paled. They were in my home? Alexander nodded grimly. Let's see what was worth breaking in. In his office, Maya inserted the USB drive into a standalone computer that Alexander assured her wasn't connected to any network. The drive contained hundreds of files meticulously organized by date, the most recent from just 3 months ago. He's alive, Maya breathed. My father has been updating this. The files told an astonishing story. After fleeing to Brazil, Martin Santos hadn't remained idle. He had meticulously documented Harrison Bennett's rise to power, tracked the development and marketing of Aureliumab, and gathered evidence of scientific fraud and financial crimes spanning decades. Most damning were the recorded conversations, Bennett speaking openly about how he had acquired the Aureliumab patent, discussing the unfortunate accident that befell Elena Santos, and coldly calculating the maximum price they could charge desperate parents of sick children. My God, Alexander whispered, his face ashen as they listened. I knew Harrison was ruthless, but this ... he's a monster. Maya finished, her voice hard. He let children suffer, die even, when they couldn't afford his stolen medicine, all while paying off my father to stay silent. These recordings would destroy Meridian, Alexander said. The lawsuits alone would bankrupt the company. Good, Maya replied fiercely. Alexander turned to her. Maya, Meridian produces medications that hundreds of thousands of people depend on, including Elijah. If the company collapses overnight ... single quotes understanding dawned in her eyes. The supply chain would be disrupted. Patients would be left without treatment. Exactly. We need to be strategic about this. Alexander ran a hand through his hair. We expose Bennett and his conspirators, but protect the company's ability to continue producing essential medications. Maya nodded slowly. My father must have realized this too. That's why he didn't just release everything publicly. They continued examining the files, finding a detailed record of the payments Martin had received, payments that had indeed stopped 8 months ago. The final file was a video recording dated just 3 months prior. Maya clicked on it with shaking hands. Her father's face filled the screen, older than in the photographs, deeply lined, his dark hair now streaked with silver. But his eyes, Maya realized with a jolt, were exactly like Elijah's. Isabel, if you're watching this, I've finally found a way to end this. The payments have stopped because I refused their last transfer. They believe I'm dying. Let them keep believing that. The truth is, I've made contact with someone inside Meridian, someone who can help expose what Bennett did. I'm coming home, Isabel. After all these years, I'm coming home. He paused, emotion overtaking him. Maya ... my daughter. If you're seeing this instead, it means something has happened to me and Isabel has shared the truth with you. I'm so sorry for the life you've lived because of my absence. Everything I did was to protect you both. I hope someday you'll understand and perhaps even forgive me. Maya wiped tears from her cheeks as her father continued. The evidence on this drive is everything needed to bring down Bennett and his collaborators, but be careful. There are others involved, people whose names you would recognize, powerful people who have profited from my work while children suffered. They will do anything to prevent this from coming to light. He leaned closer to the camera. If you're watching instead of Isabel, it means they've found me. It means you're in danger too. Trust no one except the person my contact identified, Alexander Reeves. He doesn't know it yet, but his life and ours have been connected from the beginning. He was patient zero, the first success of Aureliumab, and he's the key to exposing the truth. Maya turned to Alexander, who looked equally stunned. He knew about you. He was coming to you. The recording continued. One last thing. If they realize I've stopped taking their money, they may try to hurt you through any means possible. If you or anyone you love suddenly develops symptoms requiring Aureliumab treatment, it's not a coincidence. They've perfected targeted delivery systems for inducing autoimmune response. It was part of the research they stole and weaponized. The original notes in the safety deposit box contained the counteragent formula. Maya gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Elijah, they did this to him. They made him sick. To control you, Alexander said grimly, to ensure you needed their medication. The recording ended with Martin giving specific instructions on how to use the evidence, emphasizing the need to secure production of essential medications before going public. His final words were directed at Maya. I never stopped looking for a way back to you. Everything I did was to keep you safe. I love you, my daughter. Always. The screen went black. Maya sat in silence, tears streaming down her face. 25 years of absence explained in 10 minutes of video. A father she'd never known had been fighting for her all along. He contacted someone at Meridian, Alexander said quietly. Someone who led him to me. But who? Maya asked. Before Alexander could respond, his phone buzzed with a security alert. He checked the screen and tensed. We have a vehicle approaching the main gate. Executive Meridian Transport. Single quotes. Maya stood. Bennett? No. Alexander's expression was unreadable. My former chief medical officer, Dr. Sophia Chun, the last person I would have expected. He turned to Maya, and someone who had access to every piece of clinical data on Aralimab ever collected. Your father's contact inside Meridian, Maya realized. Stay here, Alexander instructed, heading for the door. I'll meet her personally. Alexander, Maya called after him. If she betrayed my father, single quotes, he nodded grimly. I'll be careful, single quotes, alone in the office. Maya returned to the USB drive, searching for any mention of Dr. Chun. She found nothing explicit, but noticed recurring references to SC in her father's notes. As she read deeper, she discovered something that made her blood run cold. Evidence suggesting the targeted delivery system her father mentioned had been tested on unwitting subjects. Children with no family history of autoimmune disorders suddenly developing symptoms that only Aralimab could treat. Children like Elijah. A sound at the door made her look up. Natalie, the security officer, stood there with an apologetic expression. Ms. Santos, Dr. Chun is asking to see you specific. She says it's urgent. She has information about your father. Maya hesitated, torn between caution and desperate hope. Where's Alexander? Speaking with Dr. Chun in the main living room. He asked me to fetch you, but said the decision to join them is yours. Making up her mind, Maya removed the USB drive and slipped it into her pocket. I'll come, but first I need to check on Elijah. They found Elijah still happily engaged with the virtual reality system. Maya knelt beside him, smoothing his hair. Having fun, sweetheart? Mom, I'm fighting space pirates, he exclaimed without removing the headset. That's great, she said, forcing cheer into her voice. I need to talk with Mr. Reeves and a visitor for a little while. Stay here with the games, okay? Okay, he agreed easily, attention already back on his virtual adventure. As Maya followed Natalie toward the living room, she clutched the USB drive in her pocket like a talisman. Whatever Dr. Chun had to say about her father, she would face it with the truth literally in hand. Dr. Sophia Chun was not what Maya had expected. In her late 50s, she had a calm, measured presence that seemed at odds with someone embroiled in a decades-long conspiracy. She sat perfectly poised in Alexander's living room, her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable as Maya entered. Ms. Santos, Dr. Chun said, standing. You look so much like him. Alexander watched the exchange intently. Dr. Chun claims she's been working with your father for the past 5 years. Not just working with him, Dr. Chun clarified, protecting him and continuing his research. You knew my father was alive all this time? Maya asked, keeping a careful distance. You knew what they did to him? Not all this time. I joined Meridian 15 years ago. Dr. Chun's gaze was direct, unflinching. I was hired to improve the efficacy of Aralimab. In the process, I discovered irregularities in the original research, authorship discrepancies, data that didn't align with the official narrative. And you started digging, Alexander surmised. Dr. Chun nodded. It took years to uncover the truth. Harrison Bennett had systematically erased your father from company history, but science leaves traces. The methodology, the approaches used in the original Aralimab formulation, they had a signature that didn't match any of Bennett's other work. When did you find my father? Maya pressed. 5 years ago. He found me, actually. A ghost of a smile crossed Dr. Chun's face. I had published a paper that referenced an obscure technique used in the original Aralimab trials, a technique I later learned your father had pioneered. He reached out through encrypted channels, testing whether I could be trusted. Alexander leaned forward. And you've been working together since then? Right under Bennett's nose? Yes. Gathering evidence of the original fraud, documenting the ongoing corruption, and single quotes, she hesitated, looking at Maya with genuine regret, and trying to develop a counteragent for the targeted autoimmune trigger mechanism. Maya's hand instinctively moved toward her pocket where the USB drive was hidden. So it's true. They made Elijah sick deliberately. I believe so, Doctor. Chun's voice softened with genuine regret. When Martin stopped accepting payments, Bennett needed a new form of control. The targeted system was originally developed for precision treatment of autoimmune disorders, delivering immunosuppressants exactly where needed. Bennett's team perverted it into a weapon. How? Alexander demanded. How could they target Elijah specifically? DNA mapping. Your mother's medical records from her cancer treatment would have provided enough genetic material to create a marker specific to her bloodline. Dr. Chun looked at Maya apologetically. Modern precision medicine is miraculous when used ethically. In the wrong hands, Where is my father now? Maya asked, the question she'd been holding back. Dr. Chun's expression confirmed her fears before she spoke. We were supposed to meet 3 days ago. He never arrived. His last message indicated he had finally obtained proof of Bennett's direct involvement in your aunt's death. Maya sank onto the couch, the weight of hope deferred crushing down on her. Is he dead? I don't know, Doctor, Chun admitted. But Martin is resourceful. He's disappeared before when threatened. That's why I came directly to Alexander. Martin always said if something happened to him, Alexander Reeves was the contingency plan. Alexander looked genuinely surprised. Why me? I never met the man. Because you were the first, Dr. Chun explained. The first child saved by Aralimab. Martin considered you living proof of his work. And because you've been fighting Bennett's price gouging from inside the company, he believed you were the only person at Meridian with both the power and the moral compass to finish what he started. The room fell silent as Alexander absorbed this. Finally, he asked, what was Martin's plan? Dr. Chun reached into her bag and removed a small metal case. Inside was another USB drive, nearly identical to the one Maya had found. This contains the counteragent formula for the targeted trigger. It can reverse the induced autoimmune response in Elijah, but more importantly, it contains irrefutable proof that Meridian has been testing the targeted system on unwitting subjects for years. Children, Maya whispered. Yes. Specifically children whose parents had opposed Meridian in some way, whistleblowers, journalists investigating price gouging, competitors developing generic alternatives. Alexander's expression hardened with each word, the pharmaceutical equivalent of a mob breaking kneecaps. Precisely, Dr. Chun handed the case to Alexander. Martin wanted to ensure two things: that the counteragent would be developed to help those already affected, and that the evidence would be presented in a way that wouldn't disrupt the supply of essential medications. That's why he came to me, Alexander realized. As chairman, I could initiate an internal investigation, separate the legitimate operations from the criminal elements. Yes, he believed you could save the company while excising the cancer within it. Dr. Chun turned to Maya. He also wanted to protect you and Elijah. Bennett's resources are virtually unlimited. Going public without proper protection would put you at risk. Maya stood abruptly. We need to get Elijah the counteragent immediately. How quickly can it be synthesized? I already have it, Doctor, Chun replied, producing a small vial from her bag. Enough for one treatment. Martin and I prepared it for Elijah specifically. Alexander's security system chimed with an alert. He checked his phone and frowned. Multiple vehicles approaching. Not Meridian this time, single quotes. He tapped his earpiece. Status report. Whatever he heard made his expression darken. He turned to Maya and Dr. Chun. We need to move. Now. Bennett's security team has breached the outer perimeter. How? Dr. Chun asked, alarmed. This place is a fortress. Someone gave them access codes. Alexander's gaze fell on his security officer, Natalie, who had remained silently by the door. Isn't that right, Natalie? The security officer's hand moved subtly toward her weapon. Reeves, don't, Alexander warned. The system flagged unauthorized use of my security credentials 20 minutes ago. I wanted to see what game you were playing. Natalie's professional demeanor dissolved into something colder, more calculated. You should have stayed out of this, Alexander. Bennett offered to let you walk away. The board was willing to attribute your investigation to corporate due diligence and let him continue poisoning children? Alexander's voice was ice. Where's the rest of my security team? Natalie's smile was chilling, indisposed. Maya's thoughts flew to Elijah, still playing in the game room. If you've hurt my son, the boy is fine. For now. Natalie withdrew her weapon, pointing it casually at Dr. Chun. Bennett wants him intact, his valuable research property. The clinical way she referred to Elijah sent rage coursing through Maya. But before anyone could move, a small voice came from the doorway. Mom? Mr. Reeves? Elijah stood there confused, his eyes widening at the sight of the gun. What's happening? Everything happened in an instant. Natalie turned slightly toward the new voice. Dr. Chun lunged forward, knocking the gun aside. Alexander tackled Natalie to the ground. The weapon discharged with a deafening crack, the bullet shattering an artwork on the wall. Elijah! Run! Maya screamed, rushing toward her son. Alexander wrestled with Natalie, pinning her arms. Maya! Get Elijah to the panic room, lower level behind the bookcase in my study. Maya scooped up Elijah and ran for the study, Dr. Chun following close behind with both USB drives and the vial of counteragent. Behind them, the sounds of struggle continued, followed by the crash of breaking glass. The panic room was exactly where Alexander had described, hidden behind a bookcase that swung open when Dr. Chun pulled the correct volume. Inside was a steel-reinforced chamber with multiple screens showing security feeds from around the property. Maya watched in horror as black-clad figures swarmed the grounds, methodically neutralizing Alexander's remaining security personnel. Where's Alexander? She asked frantically, scanning the monitors. Dr. Chun pointed to a screen showing the living room. Alexander was nowhere to be seen, but Natalie lay motionless on the floor. He must have escaped through another route. As if in answer, one of the screens flickered to life with Alexander's face. He appeared to be in some kind of tunnel. Maya, can you hear me? His voice came through the room speakers. Yes. Where are you? Maintenance tunnel beneath the house. I'm heading for the boat dock. His breath came in ragged gasps. Bennett's people have compromised the main security system. The panic room operates on an isolated circuit. You should be safe for now. What about you? Maya asked, clutching Elijah, who watched the screens with wide, frightened eyes. I'm going to lead them away from the house. Alexander's expression was grim but determined. Dr. Chun administered the counteragent to Elijah. Maya, there's an emergency exit from the panic room that leads to the cliffs. Access code 7294. Wait 1 hour, then take that route. If I haven't returned, there's a car hidden in the groundskeeper's shed with new identities and enough cash to disappear. Alexander, no. Listen to me, Maya. The evidence you have can destroy Bennett, but only if you survive to use it. I can buy you time. His eyes softened. I promised I'd help you, and I will, whatever it takes. The screen went dark as Alexander cut the connection. Dr. Chun immediately moved to prepare the counteragent, filling a syringe with the clear liquid from the vial. Elijah, this medicine will help make you better. The real kind of better, not just treating symptoms. Elijah looked to Maya, who nodded encouragingly despite the fear threatening to overwhelm her. It's okay, sweetheart, Doctor. Chun is here to help. As Dog Chun administered the injection, Maya watched the security monitors. Bennett's forces had breached the main house and were methodically searching each room. On another screen, she caught a glimpse of Alexander reaching a small dock where a sleek boat was moored. He was about to board when a figure stepped from the shadows, blocking his path. Even from the grainy security feed, Maya recognized Harrison Bennett. The silver-haired executive stood on the dock, flanked by two armed guards, calmly confronting Alexander as if they were meeting for a business lunch rather than a violent confrontation. There's no audio, Doctor, Chun said, finishing with Elijah's injection and moving to Maya's side. But Bennett wouldn't be there personally unless ... single quotes, unless what? Maya prompted. Unless he believes this is the end game. Dr. Chun's face was grim. Bennett never exposes himself to risk. If he's there in person ... single quotes. Maya understood the implication. Bennett was confident enough to personally oversee Alexander's capture, which meant he believed he could clean up this situation permanently, leaving no loose ends. No witnesses. On the screen, Alexander stood tall, apparently refusing whatever Bennett was proposing. The older man shook his head with exaggerated regret, then stepped aside as his guards advanced on Alexander. The screen suddenly went black as the rest of the monitors flickered and died. The panic room's emergency lighting activated, bathing them in an eerie red glow. They've cut the main power, Doctor, Chun said unnecessarily. The backup systems will hold for a while, but ... single quotes. Maya held Elijah close, feeling his small body tremble against hers. The counteragent was in his system now, potentially reversing the manufactured illness that had been used to control her, but what good was that if they didn't survive the next hour? Mom, Elijah whispered, his voice small but steady. Are the bad guys after us because of my medicine? Maya met Dr. Chun's eyes over her son's head, both women understanding the terrible irony. The medicine that had saved Elijah's life was at the center of a conspiracy that now threatened to take it. Yes, sweetheart, Maya answered, deciding her son deserved the truth. But we're going to be okay, and we're going to make sure those bad guys can't hurt any other children. As she spoke, a muffled explosion somewhere above them made the panic room shudder. Bennett's forces were getting closer. The minutes crawled by in the red-tinged darkness of the panic room. Maya held Elijah close, whispering reassurances while her mind raced through desperate calculations. Dr. Chun worked methodically, examining the room's resources, emergency supplies, communication equipment, the tunnel Alexander had mentioned. The counteragent should begin working immediately, Dr. Chun explained, checking Elijah's pulse with practiced precision. His body will need time to respond, but the targeting mechanism should be neutralized within hours. Maya stroked her son's hair. How will we know it's working? Reduced inflammation markers, improved energy levels. The artificial triggers create distinct patterns of symptoms. Dr. Chun's clinical tone softened. Martin designed this counteragent specifically for Elijah using your DNA markers. It will work. Another muffled explosion, closer this time, made the reinforced doors shudder. Elijah flinched, burying his face against Maya's shoulder. We can't wait an hour, Maya decided, rising to her feet. We need to move now, Doctor. Chun nodded grimly. I agree. Bennett's forces are working faster than anticipated. She moved to a keypad beside a steel door marked emergency exit and entered the code Alexander had provided, 7294. The door slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss, revealing a narrow, dimly lit tunnel carved directly into the cliff face. Cool, damp air rushed in, carrying the scent of the ocean. This leads to a hidden cove, Doctor, Chun explained, gathering the USB drives and remaining medical supplies. Martin and I studied the property plans when considering Alexander as a potential ally. There should be a small boat moored there, an escape route. Alexander established after his falling out with Bennett. Maya helped Elijah to his feet. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Tired, he admitted, but not as achy. He looked up at her with those familiar dark eyes. His grandfather's eyes, though he didn't know it yet. His myrrh. Reeves gonna be okay? Before Maya could formulate a reassuring lie, the panic room's emergency communication system crackled to life. A voice that wasn't Alexander's filled the small space. Miss Santos, Harrison Bennett's cultured tone was unnervingly calm. I know you can hear me. I have Alexander Reeves. He's alive. For now. Though rather worse for wear. Maya froze, exchanging alarmed glances with Dr. Chun. I also have someone else who might interest you, Bennett continued. Someone who's been quite troublesome for many years. Someone who, I believe, never had the pleasure of meeting. A new voice came through the speaker, weaker, pained, but with an unmistakable determination that resonated through Maya's very core. Maya, don't listen to him. Take Elijah and run. The evidence. The voice was cut off by what sounded like a blow, followed by Bennett's smooth tones again. Dr. Martin Santos, brilliant researcher, absent father, an eternal thorn in my side, still alive, despite my best efforts. Dad, Maya whispered, the word unfamiliar on her tongue. A lifetime of abandonment issues collided with the revelations of the past 24 hours, leaving her dizzy with conflicting emotions. "Here's my proposition," Bennett continued. "You have something I want, evidence that could be problematic for my organization. I have something you want, two somethings actually, a simple exchange. You and the boy come up, bringing all data storage devices, and I return these two gentlemen relatively unharmed." Dr. Chun gripped Maya's arm. "It's a trap," she whispered urgently. "He'll never let any of you leave alive. You have 15 minutes to consider," Bennett concluded. "After that, I start removing pieces of your father. Fingers first, Alexander's too, of course." The communication system went silent. Maya stood frozen, her son clinging to her, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her shoulders. "We have to help them," she finally said. "If you go up there with Elijah and the evidence, Bennett wins," Dr. Chun argued. "Everything your father has fought for, sacrificed for, will be for nothing. And if we escape, my father and Alexander die, Martin would want you to protect his grandson and the truth. He's endured 25 years of exile for this moment." Maya pulled away from Dr. Chun's grasp. No more sacrifice, no more choosing between terrible options. She knelt before Elijah, looking into his eyes. "Sweetheart, how are you really feeling?" Elijah considered the question with surprising seriousness. "Better. The hurting in my joints is almost gone, doctor." Chun looked startled. "That's ... faster than expected. The counteragent shouldn't work that quickly. Unless..." Maya said slowly, a realization dawning. "Elijah's condition wasn't as severe as they wanted us to believe." She looked up at Dr. Chun. "They needed him sick enough to force me to need the medication, but not so sick that it would be suspicious." "It's possible, doctor," Chun admitted. Bennett's team would have calibrated the targeted response carefully. They wouldn't want to risk killing him. He's more valuable as leverage. A plan began forming in Maya's mind. "Do you trust the security systems in this panic room? Could Bennett be listening to us now, doctor?" Chun glanced around. "No external network connections, Faraday cage construction. It's secure." Maya lowered her voice anyway. "I have an idea, but I'll need your help and it's dangerous." 10 minutes later, Maya emerged from the panic room alone, hands raised, into Alexander's once pristine living room. The space was now occupied by 6 armed men in tactical gear. Harrison Bennett sat comfortably in an armchair, looking for all the world like he was hosting a business meeting rather than a hostage situation. He was older than she expected, late 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of refined features that spoke of generations of privilege. His expression as he regarded her was one of mild interest, as if she were a moderately engaging presentation at a board meeting. "Miss Santos," he greeted her. "Where are the boy and Dr. Chun?" "Safe," Maya replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Where are my father and Alexander?" Bennett gestured casually. 2 of his men dragged Alexander into view from an adjacent room. He was bloodied but conscious, his eyes widening with alarm when he saw Maya. "You shouldn't have come up," he said, earning a backhand from one of the guards. "And Dr. Santos?" Maya demanded. Bennett smiled thinly. "Insurance. You'll see him when I see the evidence, and the boy, the evidence is here," Maya said, holding up a USB drive, one of 2 she now possessed. "And Elijah remains in the panic room with Dr. Chun until I confirm both Alexander and my father are unharmed, and we have a clear path to leave." Bennett studied her for a moment, then laughed, a genuine sound of amusement that chilled Maya to her core. "You've inherited your father's backbone, if not his scientific acumen. Very well." He nodded to one of his men, who spoke quietly into a communications device. Moments later, Martin Santos was brought into the room. Seeing him in person rather than on a video screen was jarring. He was thinner than in his recording, his face bruised, but his eyes, Elijah's eyes, lit with a mixture of anguish and pride when they fell on Maya. "Maya," he breathed, "you're so beautiful. So grown. We'll have time for family reunions later," Bennett interrupted. "The evidence, Miss Santos. All of it." Maya held out the USB drive. "Everything's on here. The original research, the documentation of theft, the recordings of your conversations about Elena's accident, and the targeted delivery system you used on children." Bennett took the drive, examining it carefully. "And the counter-agent formula?" "Also included," Maya. "Now let them go, of course." Bennett smiled, didn't reach his eye. "First the boy." After they're released, Bennett sighed with exaggerated patience. "Miss Santos, you're not in a position to negotiate. Bring out the boy and Dr. Chun, or I'll have my men retrieve them, and I can't promise gentleness." "Maya, don't," Martin began before being silenced by a guard. Maya appeared to consider, then nodded slowly. "I'll get them, but your men stay here," Bennett agreed with a magnanimous wave. Maya returned to the panic room, the door closing behind her. Inside, Dr. Chun waited with Elijah. "They have both of them," Maya confirmed, "but Bennett wants you and Elijah before he'll release them." "As expected," Dr. Chun said grimly. "Is he examining the drive?" "Yes." "How long will it take?" "To discover it's a decoy with just enough real data to appear authentic. 2, maybe 3 minutes once he connects it to a computer." Maya checked her watch. "Then we move forward as planned." "Elijah, remember what we discussed?" The boy nodded solemnly. "I pretend to be sicker than I am. When you say the code word medicine, I drop to the floor and then stay down until I come for you," Maya emphasized, smoothing his hair. "No matter what happens or what you hear. Can you do that?" "Yes," he promised, his young face set with determination that reminded her achingly of the father she'd just met. Maya took a deep breath. "Dr. Chun, you're sure the second dose will work?" The scientist patted her pocket where the real USB drive was hidden. "Positive." Martin's research was meticulous. The compound will temporarily neutralize anyone who's had contact with the auraliumab molecular structure, including Bennett's security team, all of whom would have been inoculated against accidental exposure during weapons development. Maya nodded, steeling herself. Let's go. They emerged from the panic room, Elijah between them, appearing weaker than he had been moments before, shoulders hunched, steps faltering, leaning heavily on Maya. Bennett's smile widened at the sight. The final player arrives. And Dr. Chun, my once trusted research director. Your betrayal was particularly disappointing. Not as disappointing as discovering the company I dedicated my career to was poisoning children, Doctor, Chun replied evenly. Bennett dismissed this with a wave. Progress requires sacrifice. The targeted delivery system has applications far beyond silencing troublesome parents. He turned to one of his men. Take the boy. Maya stepped protectively in front of Elijah. You have your evidence. Release Alexander and my father first. I don't think you understand your position, Miss Santos. Bennett nodded, and two of his men raised their weapons. The boy comes with me. He's far too valuable a research subject to leave behind, especially now that he's received the counter-rage. The data from his recovery alone will be worth millions. You'll never touch him again, Maya said, her voice low and dangerous. Bennett sighed. Such dramatics. Just like your father, he gestured to his men. Take the boy, kill the women. We'll make it look like Reeves' security team went rogue. As the armed men advanced, Maya caught Alexander's eye across the room. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. Elijah, Maya said clearly. It's time for your medicine. Everything happened at once. Elijah dropped to the floor as instructed. Dog Chun threw a small glass vial that shattered at the feet of Bennett's security team, releasing an aerosolized compound. Alexander, despite his injuries, drove his shoulder into the guard nearest him. Martin lunged for Bennett, who was reaching inside his jacket. The air filled with a fine mist that the security team inadvertently inhaled. Within seconds, they began to stagger, weapons lowering as the neuromuscular disruption took effect, a side effect of the counteragent on those previously exposed to the weaponized form of auraliumab. But Bennett had anticipated something. He pulled a small device from his jacket, not a weapon, but a medical injector that he swiftly pressed against his neck. His eyes met Maya's across the chaos of collapsing security personnel. Always prepared, he said calmly, seemingly unaffected by the compound that had incapacitated his team. A different formulation, you see. I learned long ago not to be vulnerable to my own weapons. As Alexander and Martin fought to reach Maya and Elijah, Bennett backed toward the exit. The real threat in the room now clear. He still had the decoy USB drive, but his expression suggested he already knew it was worthless. This isn't over, Santos, he called to Martin. It never will be. Then he was gone, slipping out through the front entrance as his security team lay incapacitated around him. Maya rushed to Elijah, scooping him up from the floor as Alexander and Martin secured the fallen guards with their own restraints. Dr. Chun quickly checked the prone men, confirming they were temporarily paralyzed but in no medical danger. Then, for the first time in 25 years, Martin Santos stood face to face with his daughter, his eyes filled with tears, his hands trembling as he reached for her but stopped short of touching her. Maya, he whispered, can you ever forgive me? Behind them, Alexander watched the reunion with complex emotions playing across his battered face. The pieces of a decades-long puzzle were finally coming together, but Bennett was still free. And now he knew they had the real evidence. The true fight was just beginning. In the aftermath of Bennett's escape, Alexander's home became a storm of activity. Security personnel loyal to Alexander arrived within 30 minutes, securing the property and detaining Bennett's incapacitated team. Local law enforcement would be kept out of it for now. Alexander's influence ensured that, giving them precious time to plan their next move. Through it all, Maya and Martin remained in a corner of the living room, the space between them charged with 25 years of absence. They sat across from each other, Elijah nestled against Maya's side, *ing openly at the grandfather he'd never known existed until today. You have my eyes, Martin said to Elijah, his voice thick with emotion. Your grandmother always said I had old soul eyes. Elijah studied the older man cautiously. Mom said you were a scientist who made my medicine. Martin nodded, a sad smile crossing his face. I helped create the original formula many years ago, but your mother is the real hero. She fought for you when I couldn't be there. Maya's emotions warred within her, joy at finding her father alive, anger at the years lost, and confusion about how to feel about this stranger who shared her blood but not her memories. Why didn't you find a way to contact us? She finally asked. All these years, I thought you abandoned us because you didn't want a family. Martin's eyes filled with pain. After they found us in Brazil, after I led them away from you and your mother, Bennett's men caught me. I spent 3 years in what they called a research facility in South America. In reality, it was a prison where they forced me to continue developing applications for auraliumab. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a pattern of old scars, systematic clinical marks of prolonged medical testing. When I finally escaped, I learned Isabel had taken you back to the States and changed your name. Bennett's people were watching her. If I had approached you, they would have killed us both, Maya finished quietly. I considered it anyway, Martin admitted, many times, but I realized I could do more for you by staying hidden, gathering evidence, working to expose Bennett while developing a counteragent in case he ever used the targeted system against you. Dr. Chun, who had been consulting with Alexander across the room, joined them. Your father contacted me after discovering I had published research questioning some of Bennett's early patents. He recognized my methodologies as building on his original work. She placed a hand on Martin's shoulder. Without him, we would never have understood how the targeted delivery system worked or how to counter it. When did you learn about Elijah? Maya asked. 8 months ago. Martin's voice broke. Bennett's team kept close surveillance on you. Quote, when I stopped taking their hush money, when I began making progress with Dr. Chun on exposing them, they activated the contingency plan they'd prepared years ago. They made Elijah sick. The reality of it still made Maya's blood boil. Yes, using genetic markers from your mother's medical records, they created a precise autoimmune trigger. Nothing that would kill him. They needed him as leverage, but serious enough to force you to seek expensive treatment. Treatment only Meridian could provide, but why now after all these years? Alexander joined them, his face cleaned of blood but bruises darkening along his jaw. Because the new Auraliumab patent is being challenged by generic manufacturers, Bennett needs the board's complete support to fight them. My opposition was becoming problematic, so they created a situation where you would be forced to help me, Maya realized. They knew about your patient assistance program. Alexander nodded. They manipulated us into meeting, thinking I'd simply pay for Elijah's medication through official channels and move on. They didn't anticipate that I'd recognize your name, or that I'd been investigating discrepancies in Meridian's research history. When you started asking questions about the Santos's name, you triggered internal security alerts, Dr. Chun explained. Bennett realized he'd miscalculated. Martin leaned forward, wincing slightly from his injuries. Maya, I need you to understand, I never stopped fighting to protect you. Every day away from you was ... single quotes. He struggled for words. It was like missing a part of myself, but I couldn't risk Bennett hurting you to get to me. Maya saw the truth in his eyes, the same eyes that looked back at her from Elijah's face, from her own mirror. The weight of 25 years of misunderstanding began to lift, replaced by a new anger directed solely at Harrison Bennett and the system that had torn her family apart. What happens now? She asked, looking from her father to Alexander. Bennett escaped. He knows we have evidence against him. He'll be mobilizing every resource at his disposal, Alexander confirmed. Corporate attorneys, political connections, private security. He's had decades to prepare contingencies. But we have the truth, Martin said, voice strengthening. And now, we have each other, Doctor. Chun produced the real USB drive from her pocket. We also have this comprehensive documentation of Bennett's crimes. The original research proving Martin and Elena's authorship of Auraliumab. Records of the targeted system being tested on unwitting subjects. Financial records showing how Bennett has been siphoning company funds for decades. We need to release it immediately, Maya insisted. Before Bennett can bury it, Alexander shook his head. We need to be strategic. As I said before, an immediate public release could disrupt medication supply chains. Patients like Elijah rely on Meridian's production capabilities. Alexander's right, Martin agreed. Bennett has structured Meridian so that he's insulated from direct exposure. The company itself, the researchers, the production facilities, the distribution networks, they're filled with good people who have no idea what their leadership has done. So what do we do? Maya asked. Alexander's expression hardened with resolve. We use Meridian's own systems against Bennett. As chairman, I still have certain authorities that even Bennett can't override, including calling an emergency board meeting. The board is filled with Bennett loyalists, Dr. Chun pointed out. Yes, but they're also pragmatists, dedicated to protecting the company and their investments, Alexander countered. If presented with irrefutable evidence of Bennett's crimes, they'll sacrifice him to save Meridian. Martin nodded slowly. It could work, especially if we can demonstrate that Bennett has been embezzling from the company. Nothing motivates corporate boards like financial self-interest while they strategize. Elijah had been quietly observing, his eyes moving from speaker to speaker. Now he tugged on Maya's sleeve. Mom, I'm feeling better, like a lot better. Dr. Chun immediately shifted to physician mode, examining him with careful attention. The counteragent is working faster than expected. Your body is naturally fighting off the artificial triggers. That's good, right? Maya asked. Very good. It means the targeting wasn't as sophisticated as Bennett believed. His team must have rushed the process after your father stopped accepting payment. Dr. Chun smiled at Elijah. You're stronger than they calculated. Alexander's phone chimed with an alert. His expression turned grim as he read the message. Bennett's making his move. He's called an emergency board meeting of his own for tomorrow morning. The agenda: removing me as chairman and authorizing aggressive legal action against corporate espionage and theft of proprietary research. He's going to try to discredit anything we release, Maya realized, and potentially file criminal charges against all of us, Martin added. Alexander's jaw set with determination. Then we move now. I still have the proxy votes of 2 board members who trusted me to vote their shares. Combined with my own holdings, I can force a meeting tonight. Will the board actually convene on such short notice, Doctor? Chun asked skeptically. For a potential multi-billion-dollar crisis? Absolutely. Alexander began typing rapidly on his phone. They'll attend virtually if necessary. While Alexander coordinated the emergency meeting, Maya pulled her father aside. 25 years of questions couldn't be answered in a single conversation, but one pressed most urgently on her heart. Did you ever try to find us? After you escaped? Martin's eyes filled with a sorrow so profound it made Maya's chest ache. Every day, I hired private investigators when I could afford them. I searched hospital records, school registrations. But your mother was thorough in creating your new identities. She was protecting us, Maya said soft. She was, Martin agreed. Isabel was the strongest person I've ever known. When she passed ... single quotes, his voice caught. I learned about her cancer too late. By the time I tracked you to the hospital, she was gone and you had moved on. Maya remembered those dark days after her mother's death, the lonely apartment, working multiple jobs to pay off medical bills. The crushing isolation. I was there, you know, Martin continued, his voice barely above a whisper, at her funeral, standing far back among the trees. I couldn't risk approaching you then. Bennett's surveillance was heaviest during that time. They knew I would try to contact you. You were there? The revelation struck Maya like a physical blow. I felt ... I always thought I felt someone watching. Mom always said I had a sixth sense like her dots. Single quotes, Martin nodded, tears finally spilling over. I saw you, so grown, so strong, standing alone by her grave. It took everything I had not to go to you. Before Maya could respond, Alexander called them back. It's set. Emergency board meeting in 3 hours. Virtual attendance authorized. We present our evidence, call for Bennett's removal, and authorization to turn evidence over to federal authorities. What about Elijah? Maya asked, her protective instincts surging. Bennett still has resource. He could try to take him. You'll all stay here, Alexander said firmly. My security team has been completely replaced. The house is now on lockdown protocols that only I can override. Dr. Chun checked her watch. 3 hours gives us time to organize the evidence for maximum impact. Martin, we should focus on TH. The familiar way they collaborated suggested the depth of their prior communication, all happening while she had been struggling alone, unaware of the forces arrayed against her family. Is that really my grandpa? Elijah asked, his voice small but curious. Maya looked at Martin, the father she'd believed had abandoned her, who had instead spent 25 years fighting from the shadows to protect her. Yes, she said finally, that's your grandpa. And he's been looking out for us for a very long time, like a secret superhero. Elijah's imagination transformed the complicated reality into something he could understand. Maya smiled despite everything. Something like that. She hesitated, then added, would you like to talk to him? Really meet him? Elijah nodded, suddenly shy but determined. As Maya led him across the room to where Martin was working, she saw her father look up, his entire being seeming to light from within at the sight of his grandson approaching voluntarily. Some wounds took decades to inflict. Perhaps some healing could begin in moments. Alexander watched the family tentatively coming together, his own emotions complex. His mentor, the man he'd trusted for years, had orchestrated unimaginable suffering. The company he'd built to help people had been corrupted from within, and the medication that had once saved his life had been weaponized against innocent children. In 3 hours, they would take their first step toward justice. But as he observed Maya introducing her son to her father, Alexander understood that regardless of what happened at the board meeting, something precious had already been salvaged from Bennett's wreckage. The truth finally was free. The 3 hours before the emergency board meeting passed in a whirlwind of focused activity. Alexander's home office transformed into a war room, with multiple screens displaying financial records, research documentation, and the damning recordings Martin had collected over decades. Dr. Chun and Martin worked seamlessly together, organizing the evidence into a presentation designed to leave no room for doubt or denial. Maya alternated between helping them and spending time with Elijah, who was showing remarkable improvement. His energy had returned, the pain in his joints nearly gone. The counteragent was working more effectively than even Dr. Chun had predicted. He's already responding to the treatment, Doctor, Chun explained after examining Elijah again. Children's immune systems are remarkably resilient when the artificial triggers are neutralized, so he won't need Aralumab anymore. Maya asked, hope rising within her. Dr. Chun hesitated. We'll need to monitor him carefully, but if his improvement continues at this rate, no, he shouldn't need ongoing treatment. The implications of this struck Maya powerfully. Bennett's team hadn't just made her son sick to control her. They'd created a perpetual patient, someone who would require their expensive medication indefinitely. The cynical calculation of it made her stomach turn. As the hour of the meeting approached, Martin found Maya in the kitchen where she'd gone to prepare a snack for Elijah. For a moment, he simply watched her from the doorway, his eyes filled with the wonder of seeing his daughter as a mother herself. You remind me so much of Isabel, he said softly. The way you move, the way you care for Elijah. She would be so proud of. Maya looked up, still adjusting to the reality of her father's presence. Did you love her? Really love her? I used to wonder. With everything I was, Martin answered without hesitation. Isabel was my North Star. When they threatened her ... single quotes, his voice caught. I would have done anything to keep her safe, including letting her believe I had abandoned you both. She never spoke badly of you, Maya admitted, surprising herself with the memory. She wouldn't talk about you much, but when she did, there was sadness, not anger. I think part of her knew the story she told me wasn't the whole truth. Martin stepped closer, hesitating before speaking again. Maya, I know we can't recover the years that were stolen from us, but I hope that after this is over, if you're willing ... I'd like the chance to know you and Elijah. The simplicity of the request, and the vulnerability behind it. touched something deep within Maya. Before she could respond, Alexander appeared at the doorway. "It's time," he said. "The board is assembling virtually. Bennett is already online, apparently making his case." The emergency meeting of Meridian Pharmaceuticals' board of directors took place in Alexander's state-of-the-art conference room. A massive screen displayed 12 faces in separate windows, board members connecting from various locations around the world. Harrison Bennett occupied the central position, his expression composed but eyes watchful. "Single quotes, ... accusations are completely baseless," Bennett was saying as they entered. "Alexander Reeves has become increasingly erratic since stepping down as CEO. Now he's consorting with industrial spies and disgruntled former employees to undermine the company he claims to serve." Alexander took his seat before the camera, his posture impeccable despite his injuries. "Thank you for convening on such short notice," he said, ignoring Bennett's accusations. "I've called this emergency meeting under Article 7 of our corporate charter, which allows the chairman to present evidence of malfeasance that threatens the company's integrity and operations." An older woman, Diane Winters, Alexander had explained earlier, one of the few independent directors not fully in Bennett's pockets, spoke up. "We've just spent 20 minutes listening to Mr. Bennett allege that you've engaged in corporate espionage, Alexander. He's recommending your immediate removal and criminal charge." "I'm not surprised," Alexander replied calmly. "Projection has always been Harrison's preferred defense. But I'm not here to trade accusations. I'm here to present evidence." With clinical precision, Alexander began laying out their case. First came the financial documentation, records showing how Bennett had systematically diverted company resources through shell corporations, funneling millions into private accounts over decades. "This isn't just embezzlement," Alexander explained. "It's a deliberate strategy to inflate the cost of medication development, creating a false justification for Aralimab's exorbitant price." The board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to concern as the evidence mounted. Bennett attempted to interject several times, but Alexander continued methodically, his corporate expertise evident in how he framed each revelation in terms of shareholder value and fiduciary responsibility, language the board couldn't ignore. Then Martin was introduced, his presence causing visible shock on Bennett's face. "Most of you don't know me," Martin began. "My name was systematically erased from Meridian's history. I am Dr. Martin Santos, the original developer of Aralimab, along with my sister, Dr. Alina Santos. He presented the original research documentation, patent applications bearing his name, and laboratory notes that predated Bennett's claimed development of the medication." As he spoke, Bennett's composure began to crack. "This is absurd," Bennett interrupted. "Santos was a lab technician, nothing more. These documents are clearly fabricated, are they?" Dr. Chun stepped forward, introduced as Meridian's former chief medical officer. "I verified their authenticity using Meridian's own archived records that required special access to retrieve because they had been deliberately buried." The board members exchanged troubled glances. The financial irregularities alone would have been concerning. The evidence of intellectual property theft elevated the situation to a potential catastrophe for the company. Then came the most damning evidence. The recordings, Bennett's own voice captured over years, detailing how he had stolen the Aralimab research, arranged Elena Santos's accident, and threatened Martin's family. "Need to make an example of Elena?" Bennett's recorded voice stated coldly. "Martin will fall in line once he understands we're serious. The Santos's name will be erased from Aralimab entirely." Another recording, more recent. "The targeted delivery system has potential far beyond treatment. Think of the leverage, creating the disease and selling the cure. Military applications alone could be worth billions." With each revelation, Bennett's face darkened. When Alexander introduced Maya and explained Elijah's situation, how Bennett's team had deliberately induced an autoimmune response in a child as leverage, several board members visibly recoiled. "This is a publicly traded pharmaceutical company, not a criminal enterprise," one director said, his voice shaking with anger or fear, possibly both. Bennett finally abandoned his facade of calm. "You're all being manipulated," he snarled. "Reeves has orchestrated this entire charade. These people are trying to steal our most valuable intellectual property." "Our intellectual property?" Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Or property that was stolen from Dr. Santos 25 years ago. The statute of limitations has long expired," Bennett countered, shifting to legal ground. "Even if there were irregularities in the initial acquisition, which I categorically deny, any claims are now legally moot. For the patent theft, perhaps," Alexander agreed. "But there's no statute of limitations on murder, Harrison, or on the ongoing criminal conspiracy to induce illness in children for profit and leverage." The atmosphere in the virtual meeting grew heavy with the weight of the accusations. Several directors appeared physically ill as the evidence of the targeted disease induction was presented. "We need to suspend this meeting and consult legal counsel," one board member suggested, clearly shaken. "I agree," another added quickly. "These allegations require proper investigation through appropriate channels." Alexander had anticipated this reaction. "By all means, consult your attorneys. But understand that federal authorities are receiving this same evidence packet as we speak. The FBI, the FCC, and the FDA will all be investigating by morning. This wasn't entirely true. They had prepared the evidence but not yet transmitted it, wanting to give the board a chance to do the right thing first. But the bluff worked. Panic flashed across several directors' faces. Meridian cannot survive this kind of scandal if it reaches the public, Diane Winters stated flat. Our stock will collapse. Regulatory approval for our entire pipeline will be jeopardized. Bennett's desperation became palpable. This is blackmail. Reeves is threatening the company to pursue a personal vendetta. No, Harrison, Alexander replied evenly. I'm trying to save Meridian from you. The company's mission, developing life-saving medications, remains vital, but it can't continue under leadership that has corrupted that mission for personal gain. The board retreated to a private virtual session, excluding both Alexander and Bennett from their deliberations. As they waited, Maya approached the camera, staring directly at the man who had destroyed her family. You made my son sick, she said, her voice controlled but vibrating with intensity. You poisoned a child to protect your stolen fortune. Bennett's eyes narrowed. Your father should have taken the money and stayed gone. Everything that's happened since has been his choice, not mine. No. Martin stepped beside his daughter. You made the choice 25 years ago when you stole our research instead of developing your own, when you killed my sister instead of competing fairly. Every crime since then has been trying to cover up one. Bennett's laugh was hollow. You understand nothing about business, Martin. Never did. In this industry, intellectual property isn't developed. It's acquired, by any means necessary. Not anymore, Alexander interjected as the board members returned to the main video conference. Their expressions told the story before a word was spoken. Diane Winters, now apparently serving as spokesperson, addressed them formally. The board has reached a preliminary decision pending full investigation. Harrison Bennett is suspended from all positions within Meridian Pharmaceuticals, effective immediately. His company accounts, access, and authority are revoked while independent counsel investigates these allegations. Bennett's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. I built Meridian. I own controlling interests. Actually, you don't, Alexander interrupted, sliding a document before the camera. Your most recent SEC filings show your ownership at 22%. With my shares and my proxies, I control 26%. The remaining directors hold the balance, and they've just voted against you, Harrison. Furthermore, Diane continued, the board authorizes Alexander Reeves as executive chairman to cooperate fully with authorities regarding the targeted delivery system allegations. The board also approves immediate implementation of compassionate use programs for any patients potentially affected by these acts. Bennett's video window abruptly went dark as he disconnected. He's running, Martin said unnecessarily. Alexander nodded grimly. I expected as much, but where he's running to is what concerns me. As if in answer, Alexander's security chief burst into the room. Sir, we have a situation. Our surveillance team reports Bennett left his office and is heading directly to the private airfield, but he's not alone. Who's with him? Alexander demanded. 3 vehicles, heavily armed security. And sir, they accessed the Meridian biocontainment facility before departure. They've removed samples from the secure storage. Dr. Chun gasped. The weaponized delivery systems. If Bennett takes those offshore ... Singwall quotes, Martin finished her thought, his face ashen. He could sell them to the highest bidder. Governments, terrorist groups, anyone willing to pay. How long until he reaches the airfield? Alexander asked. 20 minutes maximum. His plane is being prepped for immediate departure to an unknown destination. Maya looked from her father to Alexander, understanding dawning in her eyes. He's not just running from prosecution. He's starting over somewhere else, with the most dangerous technology Meridian developed. Alexander was already moving, grabbing his phone. I need to alert federal authorities. If Bennett gets that plane off the ground, there's no time, Martin interrupted. By the time the FBI mobilizes, he'll be airborne. A tense silence fell over the room as they grappled with the implication. Bennett wasn't just fleeing with company secrets. He was escaping with bioweapons that could target specific genetic markers, inducing disease in selected populations. The technology that had made Elijah sick scaled to a terrifying degree. What do we do? Maya asked, unconsciously pulling Elijah closer to her side. Alexander's expression hardened with resolve. We stop him ourselves. This is insanity, Doctor. Chun protested as Alexander outlined his plan. Bennett has armed security with him. We can't just confront him at an airfield. We don't have a choice, Alexander replied, already holstering a handgun from his security team. By the time federal authorities mobilize, Bennett will be in international airspace. Martin stepped forward. I'm coming with you. Dad, no, Maya said instantly. You've been running from Bennett for 25 years. You can't put yourself in his crosshairs now. That's precisely why I have to go, Martin countered. No one knows Bennett's thinking better than I do. I've spent decades anticipating his moves, studying his contingencies. Alexander nodded grimly. Martin's right. We need him. Then I'm coming too, Maya stated, her tone brooking no argument. Absolutely not, both men replied simultaneously. Maya's eyes flashed. Bennett used my son as a test subject. Made him suffer for months. I've earned the right to see this through. Maya, Martin said gently. Elijah needs you. You can't risk. I'll stay with Elijah, Doctor. Chun interrupted. The counteragent is working, but he should have medical supervision through the recovery process. Maya studied her father's face. the face she was still learning to recognize as family. 25 years of running, hiding, fighting from the shadows. Let me stand beside you in the light, just this once. Something passed between father and daughter. A recognition of shared determination, of the stubborn resilience that had allowed both of them to survive Bennett's machinations in their separate ways. Martin nodded slowly. 3 vehicles. Alexander instructed his security chief. Different routes to the airfield. If Bennett has men watching, I don't want all our eggs in one basket. Within minutes, they were moving. Maya found herself in a sleek black SUV with Alexander and her father, speeding through the night toward the private airfield. 2 additional security vehicles flanked them, containing Alexander's most trusted personnel. Bennett will be expecting pursuit, Martin said, checking the tactical vest Alexander's team had provided him. He'll have countermeasures in place. My security has airfield schematics, Alexander replied. 3 possible entry points, limited cover. Bennett's plane will be at the central hangar, his own Gulfstream G650. Maya listened to their tactical discussion with a surreal sense of displacement. 24 hours ago, she had been a waitress struggling to afford her son's medication. Now she was in an armed pursuit of a pharmaceutical executive turned bioterrorist, alongside the billionaire who had paid for that medication and the father she had believed abandoned her. Bennett won't expect you, Martin said suddenly, looking at Maya. Me, yes. Alexander, definitely, but you're the variable he can't predict. What do you mean? She asked. In all his calculations, all his contingencies, Bennett never factored in that you might become an active player. To him, you were just leverage against me. He underestimated you, Alexander added, just as he underestimated how quickly Elijah would respond to the counteragent. Maya thought of her son, now safely under Dr. Chun's care, recovering from the illness deliberately inflicted upon him. The anger that had been building since she'd learned the truth crystallized into something harder, more focused. I want him to know, she said quietly. I want Bennett to look me in the eye and understand that his weapon failed, that Elijah is healing. Martin reached across the seat and squeezed her hand, the first physical contact between them. He'll know. Alexander's phone buzzed. Airfield security's been compromised, he reported after reading the message. Bennett's team took control of the tower. They've cleared all other aircraft and personnel. How long until his plane is ready for takeoff? Martin asked. 10 minutes maximum. They fell silent as the gravity of the situation settled over them. If Bennett escaped with the weaponized delivery systems, countless lives would be at risk. The technology that had made Elijah sick could be deployed on a massive scale, targeting specific genetic markers and population. Maya's phone chimed with a text message. It was from Dr. Chun. Elijah asking about you. Told him you're helping catch bad guys. He says his superhero grandpa will protect you. A lump formed in Maya's throat. Even now, in the midst of danger, the simple faith of her son provided a moment of clarity. This wasn't just about justice or revenge. It was about ensuring Elijah grew up in a world where medication healed rather than harmed, where science served humanity rather than exploited it. We're approaching the airfield, Alexander announced as they turned onto a private access road. Bennett's convoy is already inside the perimeter. Through the windshield, Maya could see the distant lights of a small private airfield. A sleek white jet was visible on the tarmac, its engines beginning to spool up. Figures moved around it, loading equipment and forming a protective perimeter. We're out of time, Martin said tersely. Once those wheels leave the ground, single quotes, Alexander made a quick decision. We go in hot. All vehicles, all entry points simultaneously. Maximum confusion. The SUV accelerated, racing toward the main gate. The other security vehicles peeled off toward secondary entrances. As they approached, Maya could see armed figures taking notice, raising weapons. Down! Alexander shouted as the first shots pinged against their armored vehicle. The SUV crashed through the gate, sending guards scrambling. Alexander's security team and the trailing vehicles engaged Bennett's forces, the crack of gunfire splitting the night. Stay low, Martin instructed Maya, shielding her with his body as Alexander maneuvered the vehicle directly toward the aircraft, zigzagging to avoid gunfire. They screeched to a halt behind a fuel truck, using it as cover approximately 100 yards from Bennett's plane. The boarding stairs were still down, but Bennett's security team had formed a protective cordon around the aircraft. We need to disable that plane, Alexander said, peering around the edge of the truck. Puncture a fuel line, damage the landing gear. Anything. There, Martin pointed to a case being loaded onto the plane. Distinctive biohazard markings visible even at this distance. That's the delivery system samples. Maya watched as a familiar silver-haired figure supervised the loading operation. Harrison Bennett, still in his board meeting attire, directing his men with the calm authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. I can get to the plane, she said suddenly. Both men turned to her in alarm. No, Martin began, but Maya cut him off. They're looking for threats. Armed men, tactical approaches. They won't be watching for a woman walking directly toward them. It's too dangerous, Alexander argued. Bennett thinks of me as a waitress, a single mother he manipulated, not a threat. Maya's expression hardened. That's his mistake. Before either man could stop her, Maya slipped out the opposite side of the SUV, keeping the fuel truck between herself and Bennett's security team. She removed her jacket, adjusted her posture to appear smaller, more hesitant, and began walking openly across the tarmac. She had covered half the distance before anyone noticed her. When they did, confusion rather than immediate hostility was the response. A guard raised his weapon, then hesitated, looking to Bennett for instruction. Bennett himself seemed frozen in disbelief as he recognized her. "Ms. Santos," he called, recovering quickly. "This is a surprising development, and a foolish one." Maya continued approaching, her hands visible, her stride purposeful but unthreatening. "I came to talk, Mr. Bennett." Behind her, she knew Alexander and her father would be moving into position, using her distraction. She needed to keep Bennett's attention. "Talk?" Bennett's laugh was incredulous. "In the middle of an armed standoff? I think not." "About Elijah," Maya continued, now close enough to see Bennett's expression clearly. "About what you did to him." A flicker of something, not quite guilt, perhaps calculation, crossed Bennett's face. A regrettable but necessary measure. "Business requires leverage, Ms. Santos. He's 7 years old." Maya's voice carried across the tarmac, loud enough for Bennett's men to hear. "You made a child suffer to control his grandfather." Some of the security personnel exchanged uncomfortable glances. Professionals they might be, but deliberately sickening a child crossed lines most wouldn't willingly contemplate. "And yet here you are without the child in question," Bennett observed coldly, "making a futile gesture while I depart with technology worth billions. Your father's stubbornness clearly runs in the family." Maya was now within 20 yards of the plane, close enough to see the biohazard case being secured inside the cabin. "The counteragent worked," she said clearly. "Elijah is recovering. Your weapon failed." Bennett's composure slipped. "Impossible. The targeted system would require specific genetic recoding to neutralize. Unless ... single quotes." His eyes widened in realization. "Martin completed the counteragent." "He did." Maya took another step forward. "Everything you've done, stealing his research, killing his sister, threatening his family, it was for nothing. In the end, my father's science was better than yours." Bennett's face contorted with rage. "Enough. Secure her," he barked to his men. But the moment of distraction had served its purpose. From opposite sides of the airfield, Alexander's security team had advanced undercover. Martin had circled behind the aircraft, approaching from the blind spot created by the boarding stairs. As Bennett's men moved to grab Maya, the night erupted into coordinated action. Alexander's team laid down suppressive fire, forcing Bennett's security to take cover. Martin sprinted up the boarding stairs, heading directly for the biohazard case. Bennett, realizing his escape was threatened, pulled a handgun from inside his jacket and aimed it directly at Maya. "Like aunt, like niece," he snarled. Another Santos casualty. Maya froze, staring down the barrel of Bennett's gun, her distraction gambit suddenly becoming a death sentence. In that moment, time seemed to slow. She thought of Elijah, of her father, of the years stolen from them all by the man before her. A single shot rang out. Maya flinched, but felt no impact. Instead, Bennett staggered backward, clutching his shoulder, his weapon clattering to the tarmac. Behind him stood Alexander, his gun still raised. "It's over, Harrison," Alexander called. "Federal agents are inbound. The board has authorized full cooperation with authorities." From within the plane came the sounds of struggle, followed by Martin emerging with the biohazard case, Bennett's pilot subdued behind him. "Samples secured," Martin announced, his eyes immediately finding Maya's, relief washing over his face when he saw she was unharmed. As if on cue, the distant wail of sirens became audible, growing louder by the second. Bennett's remaining security personnel, recognizing the futility of their position, began laying down their weapons. Bennett himself slumped against the boarding stairs, his hand pressed to his wounded shoulder, his empire crumbling before his eyes. "You've destroyed everything," he said bitterly as Maya approached him. "Decades of work, billions in value, medical advancements that could have transformed treatment paradigms." "No," Maya replied, looking from Alexander to her father, who now stood beside her with the secured biohazard case. "We've saved it. The real work, the science that helps rather than harms, that continues. Just without you." As federal agents swarmed the airfield, taking control of the situation, Maya, Martin, and Alexander stood together under the harsh lights of the tarmac. The battle was won, but the war to reclaim Aureliumab's legacy, to transform it from a weapon of control back into the miracle cure it was meant to be, was just beginning. "Elijah is waiting for us," Maya said quietly. Martin nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I have 25 years of grandfathering to catch up on." Alexander watched them, understanding that his role in their story was both central and peripheral. He had been patient zero, the first child saved by Aureliumab. Now he would ensure the medication saved countless more, without the corruption that had tainted its development. As dawn broke over the horizon, they headed home to Elijah, three unlikely allies bound together by medicine that had been both curse and cure, weapon and salvation. 3 months after the dramatic confrontation at the airfield, Maya stood at the entrance to Meridian Pharmaceutical's newly christened Santos's Research Center. The modern glass building gleamed in the autumn sunlight, its lobby dominated by a dedication plaque bearing two names, Dr. Elena Santos and Dr. Martin Santos, whose vision of healing without harm guides our work. Elijah fidgeted beside her in his new suit, tugging at the collar. "Do I have to wear this all day, Mom?" "Just until after the ceremony, sweetheart," Maya assured him, straightening his tie. "Grandpa wants you to look nice in the pictures, because I'm his special research assistant?" Elijah asked proudly. Maya smiled. "Exactly." The transformation in her son over the past months had been remarkable. Within weeks of receiving the counteragent, all traces of the artificially induced autoimmune response had vanished. Dr. Chun's careful monitoring confirmed what they'd all hoped. Elijah wouldn't need ongoing treatment. His body, freed from the targeted triggers, had healed itself completely. Inside the lobby, familiar faces gathered for the center's dedication ceremony. Alexander stood conversing with board members, his posture more relaxed than Maya had ever seen it. As executive chairman of a reimagined Meridian, he had overseen a corporate transformation nearly as dramatic as the changes in their personal lives. Martin emerged from a side corridor, his face lighting up at the sight of his daughter and grandson. 3 months had begun to ease the haunted look in his eyes, replacing it with something Maya recognized from her own mirror: the Santos' determination, now focused on rebuilding rather than surviving. "There are my 2 favorite people," Martin said, embracing them both. "Ready for the big day?" "Elijah was just telling me about his position as special research assistant," Maya replied with a wink. Martin knelt to Elijah's level. "And a very important position it is. Who better to tell us if our medications are working than someone who's taken them?" Dr. Chun joined them, elegant in a formal suit rather than her usual lab coat. "The press is beginning to arrive. Alexander says we should start in 15 minutes. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. Alexander spoke first, outlining Meridian's new mission: transparent research, ethical pricing, and patient-centered development. He introduced a compassionate care program that would ensure no family ever had to choose between medication and financial ruin. "The Santos' research center represents more than a building," Alexander told the assembled crowd of scientists, reporters, and industry leaders. "It represents a fundamental recommitment to the principles that should always guide medical innovation: healing rather than profit, service rather than exploitation." When Martin took the podium, a hush fell over the audience. His story, the brilliant researcher forced into hiding to protect his family, continuing his work from the shadows for decades, had captured public imagination since the truth had emerged. "My sister Elena and I began our work with a simple belief that science should serve humanity's most vulnerable," Martin said, his voice steady. "Today we reclaim that vision. The center bearing our names will focus first on developing counteragents for every targeted delivery system created under the previous administration." He paused, his eyes finding Maya and Elijah in the front row. "But more importantly, we will pioneer new approaches to autoimmune treatment that make medications like Aralumab more effective, more accessible, and more affordable for every child who needs them." The applause was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was watching her father, this man she was still getting to know, still learning to trust, standing in the light after decades in darkness. The journey ahead would be long, the years of absence impossible to truly recover, but they had begun. After the ceremony, as guests mingled at the reception, Maya found Alexander standing alone by a window overlooking the research campus. "Quite a change from serving coffee to billionaires," he observed as she joined him. Maya laughed softly. "Sometimes I still expect to wake up and find myself back at the corner booth worrying about Elijah's next dose." Alexander's expression grew serious. "The board approved the final settlement this morning. Bennett's assets have been frozen pending criminal proceedings, but his personal fortune will be used to establish a victim compensation fund." "How many children were affected?" Maya asked, the question that had haunted her since they'd discovered the full scope of Bennett's operation. 47 confirmed cases across 12 countries, Alexander replied grimly, each targeted because their parents posed some threat to Bennett's interests. Journalists investigating price gouging, legislators proposing pharmaceutical reform, competitors developing generic alternatives, and all of them will receive the counteragent? "Already happening, Doctor. Chun has overseen the distribution personally." Alexander's gaze drifted to where Elijah was charming a group of scientists with his energetic description of how the super medicine had made him better. "Your son was the first to be completely cured, a test case that became a miracle." Maya followed his gaze, warmth spreading through her chest. "And Bennett, facing multiple federal charges, bioterrorism, fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. The evidence is overwhelming." Alexander's mouth tightened, but his legal team is already preparing an insanity defense, claiming the pressure of running Meridian caused psychological breaks. Will it work? No. Too many paper trails, too many witnesses coming forward now that they're no longer afraid. His inner circle is turning on each other, offering testimonies in exchange for leniency. Alexander turned to face her directly. "He'll spend the rest of his life in prison, Maya. It's over." But it wasn't over, not really. It was transforming into something new. Maya had joined Meridian's patient advocacy division, using her experience to ensure other families navigating complex medical needs were supported rather than exploited. Martin had been reinstated as chief scientific officer, working alongside Dr. Chun to redirect Meridian's vast resources toward ethical research, and Alexander had found something he didn't know he was seeking: a purpose beyond corporate success. A chance to remake the company that had saved his life into one that truly honored its mission. "Have you visited your mother's grave?" Alexander asked suddenly. "Since everything happened?" Maya nodded. "Last week, Dad came with me. It was difficult for him. For both of us, but necessary." "And did you tell her? About Elijah? About Martin?" "I did." Maya smiled at the memory. I told her everything, how her sacrifice protected us both, how Dad never stopped fighting for us, how Elijah has her smile. Across the room, Martin was introducing Elijah to a group of researchers, his hand resting gently on his grandson's shoulder. The pride in his expression was unmistakable, not just for the boy himself, but for what he represented. A future Bennett had tried to steal, reclaimed against impossible odds. What about you? Maya asked Alexander. Back to the corporate battlefield now that Meridian is stabilized? Alexander shook his head. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations once the transition is complete. The board has approved my appointment of Dr. Chun as CEO. Martin will oversee research. Together, they'll guide Meridian better than I ever could. And what will Alexander Reeves do with all his free time? Maya teased gently. His expression softened. I'm establishing a foundation to identify cases like Elijah's, children who need medications their families can't afford. Not just a payment assistance program, but comprehensive support. Medical navigators, legal advocates, whatever it takes. The Araliamab Foundation? Maya suggested. No, Alexander replied thoughtfully. I was thinking of naming it after the woman who started it all, the Santos Foundation. Before Maya could respond, Elijah bounded over, his earlier complaints about his suit forgotten in the excitement of the day. Mom, Grandpa says I can see the real lab after everyone leaves. The one where they make the medicine. His eyes shone with the innocent enthusiasm that had survived despite everything he'd endured. He says maybe I'll be a scientist too someday. Maybe you will, Maya agreed, smoothing his hair. Or whatever else you dream of becoming. As the reception continued around them, Maya found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate waitress who couldn't afford her son's medicine to a woman who had helped bring down a pharmaceutical empire built on corruption. From a fatherless child to the daughter of a brilliant scientist who had sacrificed everything to protect her. From a single mother fighting alone to part of something larger. A family, a mission, a future reclaimed. 6 months ago, standing in the hospital pharmacy with tears streaming down her face, clutching a white bag containing medication she hadn't been able to pay for. Maya had felt nothing but confusion and suspicion toward the billionaire who had inexplicably helped her. Now she understood that moment had been just one thread in a tapestry woven decades before she was born. A tapestry of scientific discovery, corporate greed, family loyalty, and ultimately, redemption. Later that evening, as celebrations wound down, Maya found her father and son standing together on the research center's balcony, pointing at the stars emerging in the twilight sky. Martin was explaining constellations to Elijah, their profiles so similar silhouetted against the deepening blue. He's teaching him about Orion, Alexander said, joining Maya as she watched them. The hunter. Appropriate, Maya replied. We've all been hunting for something. Justice, truth, family. And have you found what you were hunting for? Alexander asked quietly. Maya considered the question, watching as Martin lifted Elijah onto his shoulders for a better view of the emerging stars. Her father and her son, together at last. The medication that had once been a financial impossibility now transformed into a beacon of hope for families around the world. The fear that had shadowed her life replaced by purpose. I've found something better, she said finally. I've found a beginning above them. The first star of evening pulsed with quiet light, a reminder that even the darkest night contains the promise of illumination, if only one has the courage to keep looking upward.